To my utter shock, I turn out to be pretty good with houseplants. It turns out most of them just want not to be overwatered, and I can neglect like a pro. Although I've always loved terrariums, with their cute AF melding of gardening and miniaturism, I kind of never looked too far into it because I expected there would be, upkeep and maintenance and ongoing work involved. But it turns out, in theory at least, if you do it right, there's basically nothing to be done to keep one going after the initial setup, which is my kind of project. Hyper-focus briefly, and then you're free to get distracted by the next shiny thing. The internet has a lot of opinions on how to do it properly, and they mostly overlap. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I think I did succeed in the cute AF department, and I'm going to tell you what I did, why I did it, and what I learned from all my research. Any light permeable vessel will do, but I've always loved the ship-in-a-bottle effect where your brain can't quite parse how all that got in there. So I hit eBay looking for a large but small-necked bottle and found these two carboys going cheap and local. They'd been garden ornaments and were filthy inside and out, so I had my work cut out for me making them presentable. I had to make a series of tools involving wire wool tied to the end of variously bent implements, and it took several goings over, but they cleaned up pretty well in the end. Based on a bit of medium casual internet research, I put together a bunch of stuff to put in my terrarium, including several types of moss from my very moss-friendly garden, some humidity-loving plants from my local garden center, some cuttings of some stuff I already had, and some bits of moss-covered sticks and bark from just, the ground. Which I know is probably not the recommended thing among hardcore terrarium experts because of all the mold and bugs and slugs it'll have on it. But I like the look of it, and I'm a rule breaker at heart, so I just, knocked off the bugs and slugs and hoped for the best. There are a lot of opinions about what you need in your base layer, and I tried to sift through all the advice I found and understand why each thing was there. You need a drainage layer because if there's ever any excess moisture in your terrarium, it'll end up at the bottom, and if your soil is all the way down there, it'll just be a sludge that rots your roots. The drainage layer doesn't prevent you from overwatering, but it does mean that you can see if there's any water there, and if there is, that's too much. I used pea gravel because I had a ton bag of it handy, but I did have to eject a snail and a slug before I shoveled out a bucketful and washed it free of dust. Most of the sources I read suggested a layer of activated charcoal above the drainage layer, and I get what they're going for. Activated charcoal is like charcoal Rice Krispies. It's been processed to have a lattice of micropores, which makes it very effective for absorbing and filtering certain things in certain circumstances, and therefore has a reputation as being purifying. Which leads people to extrapolate that it's somehow magical and to make all sorts of spurious bullshit claims. Seriously, toothpaste? In the case of a terrarium, the credible experts suggest it would maybe absorb and neutralize a certain amount of impurity in the form of bacteria and whatever, but that it would very quickly clog and need replacing if it was going to continue to filter effectively. And as you can easily apprehend, that would be impossible, so I just skipped it. The fly screen is to stop the soil from immediately clogging the gaps between the pea gravel and rendering the drainage layer pointless. Some people use sphagnum moss for this, which is fine. I just happened to have this offcut of screen, so I cut a piece to fit. Having posted it into the bottle, getting it to lie flat in the right place using just a stick through the neck was pretty challenging because it was quite springy and wanted to keep its folded shape rather than lie flat. But I finally got it and started dumping soil on it to hold it down. I was using an all-purpose potting compost from my garden center. Lots of places online said any soil will do, which I found pretty unhelpful. Soil varies so much in its content and different situations call for different mixes. I was after something with a lot of light, fluffy organic matter, but not a lot of nutrition because I wanted the plants to have an easy time putting roots out, but not to put too much growth on too quickly. And this stuff seemed to suit. Time will tell. I shoveled in quite a bit of it, building up a thick enough layer to take the depth of all my little plant pots, and kind of landscaped it into a bit of a shape. Sorry, I know that's vague. I just wanted it a bit higher at one side than the other and not perfectly flat, kind of landscapey looking. And then I started chucking in features, including the hopefully not slug-infested bits of wood and starting with the larger, more centerpiecey plants, followed by just whatever I thought next, wherever I thought it would go. It's hard to explain composition choices. I suppose I just aim for a variety of colors and textures, filling in whatever was the biggest empty space with something that would contrast with whatever it was next to. It was pretty hard to get all the plants where I wanted them and standing upright in the soil using just a stick. I had actually ordered a pair of super long tweezers, but they were still in the post, and I'm very impatient. So I decided to just hack away at the problem without waiting for the proper tools. And I kind of got there in the end. I didn't have quite enough moss to cover the bare soil, and anyway, I like the many textured look, so I made a little precision dumper out of a ruler, a tiny plant pot, some duct tape, and some string. Look, I grew up watching MacGyver. It explains a lot about how I am. And used it to precision dump some little areas of horticultural grit. I also used the precision dumper to add my springtails. What are springtails? What are springtails? They're tiny bugs you buy on the internet. They're in there to eat the mold and decay that's inevitable in a terrarium since it's a tiny ecosystem. They're like little hoovers that keep it clean. Kind of creepy, but also kind of cool. All this dumping, as precision as it was leaving bits of soil and dust stuck to the side of the jar, and I tried several things to clean it off. From my sponge on a bit of coat hanger tool to a turkey baster, which was nowhere near precise enough. In the end, a spray bottle set to jet rather than mist was by far the best technique. That worked really well and was very precise without adding too much water, which is like the main rule you need to follow. Not adding too much water because it's very hard to remove it. Once it was cleaned up, it was definitely ticking the cute AF box. I love it. Second one was much the same as the first, except my mega tweezers had arrived by then, which makes everything a lot easier. It is definitely worth having a pair of mega tweezers to move and place all the bits if you can't get your hand in the jar. They've settled in really nicely so far. They need a decent amount of light, but not direct sunlight, as they are essentially little greenhouses and can overheat. If the sides of the jar are staying misty all day, that's too wet. Leave it open for a day or two to let it dry out. But once you get the moisture level right, you can put the lid on it. You don't have to add water, possibly at all, but certainly not for long stretches of time. They just need a bit of indirect sunlight for photosynthesis. The water gets endlessly recycled, and the decomposition provides the CO2 to the plants. Then the plants provide the oxygen to the bacteria and springtails. Everybody's happy. Especially the slug. Because of course the slug made it in. Of course it did.